Moving swiftly on then, the final item of business today is a members' business debate on motion number 8695 in the name of Annabel-Goldie on through care support project HM-Prison-Greenock. This debate will be concluded without any questions being put, and I invite those members who wish to speak in the debate to press the request to speak buttons now or as soon as possible. Sadly, Annabel-Goldie cannot be with us for this debate this afternoon for very understandable reasons, and I therefore call on Jackson Carlaw to open the debate. Mr Carlaw, up to 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I stand in my best Jaeger two-piece and am delighted to speak this evening on behalf of my colleague Annabel-Goldie, who unfortunately cannot be here because she is unwell. She has asked me to read the following message, which is to say that I am sorry not to be with you for the debate and am most grateful to Jackson for stepping in. Lest my political opponents get too excited, I am on the mend and hope to be back to normal next week. I thank everyone for their kind messages of support. She is on the mend and hopes to get out of hospital tomorrow, she tells me, with oral antibiotics, which I suppose is preferable to any other, I say with some relief. And I know that she is very disappointed not to be here this afternoon and to be missing this debate, because she very much wanted to sing the praises of HM-Prison-Greenock's through care support project. Instead, it's my pleasure to be able to stand in today, particularly as the project does good work in a prison in my constituency, and particularly as I very much welcomed the announcement of the pilot in May last year. I would also like to thank members across all parties for supporting Annabel's motion this evening. The idea for this debate came from after a visit to HM-Greenock in December, where Annabel-Goldie met the acting Governor William Stewart to see first-hand the work of the pilot project designed to extend the supportive role of Scottish prisoner service staff beyond the prison gates. Now, the project has seen an investment of approximately £70,000 and the employment of through care support officers to assist offenders leaving custody in accessing services such as housing, benefits and addiction support. And this strikes both Annabel and I as common sense. In short, HM-Greenock has recognised that prisoners leaving custody need assistance and support. The project acknowledges that when prisoners are released, they face a daunting situation. They've been incarcerated in a safe environment, fed, sheltered and given routine. The moment a prisoner is released, they need to be organised, to have access to services, to be able to fill in forms, to find transportation and face the very practical and immediate problem of fending for themselves. Now, this is difficult enough for offenders leaving a controlled environment and entering the big bad world, but we know prisoners are likely to have literacy and numeracy difficulties, which therefore bring even greater challenges. The through care support officers provide vital support to prisoners who have signed up to the scheme. It is not compulsory, carrying out 6 weeks of preparation with the prisoner prior to the release and assisting them in the community thereafter for 6 weeks after their release. This can make a real difference to an individual. It can be the difference between a prisoner who has no help in the outside world and reoffends again, or a prisoner who is assisted and encouraged and given the right tools to start a rehabilitated life in the outside world. Of course, the end goal is to prevent the individual from reoffending, and this helping hand might well be the right tool to do it. Individuals need help to quickly find and access the appropriate services and to make new positive connections with the community. The officers undertake various tasks, from accompanying individuals to appointments to simply being the voice at the end of the phone, offering assistance and guidance. They are known to the individual and, more important, they are trusted. On visiting HM-Greenock, Annabel was very impressed with the ethos behind the project, the can-do attitude of the staff involved, the commitment to look at a prisoner as an individual, the officers' desire to see the potential in an individual and not just review a prisoner as someone who no longer is the prison's responsibility once they are released. And can I add, on my own account at this point, that contribution that I made in an earlier debate, that it is also the responsibility of employers across Scotland to recognise that they also have to give some opportunity and understanding if prisoners are to be properly rehabilitated into society. I understand that HMP Lomos, or Annabel does, is also trialling a similar scheme with a dedicated through care worker and care plan for every short-term prisoner. And, Presiding Officer, we know that through care projects work. Moving on Renfrewshire, a mentioning scheme managed by Action for Children, working with young offenders at Polmont, found that 74% of those working with the scheme had not returned to custody within 2 years, compared with only 50% of young offenders not within the programme. And, Presiding Officer, these projects are important because reconviction rates, although falling, remain far too high. Nearly 45% of offenders released from prison currently reoffend within a year. And while this has fallen from a high of 50% in 03-04, it still compares poorly with the reconviction rates for other sentences. In 2012, an Audit Scotland Reducing Reoffending report found that more than a fifth of offenders convicted in 2010-11 had 10 or more previous convictions. And we simply can't afford to do nothing about this. The Scottish Government estimates that the total economic and social cost of reoffending is around £3 billion annually. And while the Government currently spends £128 million a year reducing reoffending, rates remain far too high, and we continue to spend over £250 million punishing the same offenders time and time again. Now, the UK Government is pushing through care as a priority, and provision of through care is arguably wider south of the border. The Justice Secretary there, Chris Grayling, is leading a rehabilitation revolution, which will include a rollout of prisoner mentoring and through care schemes. In England and Wales, statutory supervision and rehabilitation will be extended to those sentenced to less than 12 months, and a nationwide through the prison gate resettlement service will be put in place, meaning most offenders are given continuous support by one provider from custody into their community. The key difference between this and the approach in Scotland is that Chris Grayling is exploring the use of payments by results so that the public, voluntary and private sectors can all compete for funding and will be rewarded if they achieve real reductions in reoffending. The use of public social partnerships at HMP Low Moss will open reoffending projects up to the third sector, but if results can be achieved by the private sector, I believe this should not be ruled out. Presiding Officer, more needs to be done reducing reoffending in Scotland. Projects such as the Through Care Support Project at HM-Prison-Greenock are certainly a step in the right direction, and I commend the staff there for their excellent work in tackling reoffending. I hope from the pilot best practice can be shared and adopted across the prison estate, and I am happy to move Annabel's motion on her behalf.
Many thanks. Now call on Mary Fee, to be followed by Stuart McMillan. Up to 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer, and apologies for my voice. I'll try and keep going. The motion at the heart of this debate today is similar to a members' debate that I held in May last year on reducing reoffending. So can I take this opportunity to thank both Baroness Goldie and Jackson Carlaw for so ably stepping in to allow us once again the opportunity to discuss the issue of reoffending. An issue which must be kept alive and debated if we are to achieve the significant reduction in reoffending that we all want. The Through Care Support Project is a welcome initiative, as effective and well-established through care is an essential tool in tackling reoffending. However, we know that too often there are major cracks in the system, and prisoners fall through these cracks upon release. Through care can, if not properly thought out and crucially joined up with other services, only go part of the way to repairing the damage of imprisonment on the individual, their family and the community that they return to. As I've stated many times before, through care should start as soon as the offender is sentenced. Working with the offender and the family can be an effective and worthwhile project in tackling reoffending, as research continues to show. Not only can we take steps in breaking the cycle of reoffending by re-establishing bonds between the prisoner and their loved ones, we can also support the children of offenders who are more likely to enter the criminal justice system later in their life than their peers. Placing prisoners back in the community successfully can only occur when the stigma is tackled and they can go out and look for employment. It seems absurd to think that when the state has a section of its population in direct supervision, it struggles to properly re-educate, rehabilitate and re-skill. There are many varying opinions on what meaningful activity is, and I do believe that Colin McConnell at the Scottish Prison Service will strive to get it right and provide activity that truly makes a difference. Deputy Presiding Officer, prison is the severest form of punishment our courts have at their disposal, yet it is also the most destructive form of punishment. Earlier this week, there was a timely and important intervention on this issue by Lord Carloway, who called for a change in culture in the way we view punishment and in addressing sentencing. There were comparisons with the Scandinavian countries, countries like Finland and Sweden, which have halved their prison population by changing the mindset of people and the culture of the media over decades, as well as creative means of sentencing, such as serving a sentence over different periods for non-violent offenders. And last year, during my members' debate, there was general consensus, and I'm sure that will occur again today. And if members are serious about addressing these issues and advancing their ideas, can I encourage them to come along to the cross-party group on families affected by imprisonment on the 5th of February? Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Now call on Stuart McMillan to be followed by Hans Malik.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I congratulate Annabel-Goldie and Jackson Carlaw certainly for securing this debate, and certainly I wish Annabel-Goldie well in her recovery. Towards the end of 2013, I went to HM-Greenock, and this particular issue was one of the issues that was discussed. I was greatly interested by the project, and certainly as the revolving door syndrome has blighted the Scottish criminal justice system for far too long, and certainly action is required and has been required to actually help break this cycle. I also know that there will be no one-size-fits-all strategy will actually suit everyone, but I do believe that for any system to be successful, then a number of factors need to be in existence. One of them being a prison estate where overcrowding is either to a minimum or non-existent. Locking prisoners in their cells for 23 hours a day is no good to them, the prison officers, nor to society. And I would like to record my thanks to the Scottish Government and to the Scottish Prison Service for actually improving the prison estate, which certainly will have aided this particular project. I'm also aware that an evaluation event regarding the Through Care Support project was taking place today. And certainly one of the points that someone contacted me after the meeting, and certainly part of the discussion, one of the points that was raised, that the individual informed folk that they were going to give me a call. And one of the points that was raised was if you could raise any particular issue in this debate, that there's a part of the system that actually needs to be improved upon, and what would it be? And the point that came back was actually the issue of housing. And part of the email also that was also sent to me, that they said that we need to examine ways in which the process can be finely tuned to better meet the needs of returning citizens. This would involve better planning, resources being made available, and a move away from the attitude that returning citizens do not deserve or need the same access to housing as others within the community. And I thought it was a very important point. Jackson Carlaw quite rightly highlighted the details of the project, so certainly I'm not intending to repeat what you said, but I will, however, highlight just a few brief points. And first of all, I want to commend all the staff involved in the project. They appreciate the necessity of intervention to aid people's journeys not to return back to prison. And secondly, that the project and the initiative document is detailed enough while still also retaining flexibility to aid prisoners. The project is also, as we know, in its infancy, so regular scrutiny and evaluation of its success is critical in its long-term viability and also for delivering for prisoners and society. And the final point is that in order, certainly for any multi-agency project to be successful, the planning and delivery of these plans need to be robust. Certainly, it's, as I mentioned a few moments ago regarding the issue of the housing. I was also informed of an example of one prisoner who was released from prison, not HM-Greenock, but another one within the Scottish Prison Service estate. He was released and various issues. This individual had various issues, including mental health issues. In the case for this particular person, the project at that particular prison didn't really work. The charity Positive Prisons, Positive Futures stepped in to assist, and they've actually ensured that this individual has remained out of the criminal justice system and also out of prison. Presiding Officer, I wholeheartedly welcome the Through Care projects across the prison estate, particularly in HM-Greenock, and I welcome this debate this afternoon, and once again congratulate Annabel-Goldie and Jackson Carlaw certainly for the debate. I would also like to thank all of those who are delivering for the project. We must always strive to deliver as best a service as we can, and I'm sure that this initiative at HM-Greenock will continue to aid more prisoners and also our society. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I call Hanzala Malik to be followed by Anne McTaggart.
Thank you very much and good evening, Presiding Officer. If Annabel-Goldie is watching this debate, I want to personally thank her for bringing it to Parliament, allowing us to share with her this fantastic and a very worthwhile good practice that is taking place in a Magistrates' Prison, Greenock. And I genuinely offer a speedy recovery and hope to see her very soon in this chamber. Presiding Officer, I have had a lot of opportunities over a period of time to visit many prisons around the world, if I may say, places like Pakistan, India, Iran, Iraq, Kurdistan and others. And I can assure you that I would never wish anybody to be in any of those prisons. Gone are the days when people were treated less than humans in prisons. Gone are the days when we expected our prisoners to have milk and bread, water and bread, I beg your pardon. I think, experience in our countries has shown us that if we take our prisoners seriously and treat them like human beings, then there's a half a chance of them coming out and not reoffending. I think that's very important. It's very important that we allow people to come and readjust in their family life, because at the end of the day, there are wives and children sometimes, and they all need each other. And to have a successful family unit, you need people who have been supported through a difficult time. Some people find themselves in prison sometimes under very difficult circumstances, and it takes a lot of support and help and wisdom from people to support them get back on the straight and narrow. And through care support, I think, is an exceptional example, and I think this is an example we can actually export not only to other prisons, but internationally. I think people have an opportunity here to learn and see something that is a worthwhile practice. There's been a lot of debate over the years whether prisoners should be treated less than humans. They should be treated with unkindness because they're there to be punished. And there's always been an argument that no, prisoners are human beings. If they've erred, if they've made mistake, they need an opportunity to rekindle and readjust and become valuable citizens. And I am also of the same thought that people always need an opportunity to better themselves. And I think when prisoners are released from prison, I think it's important for them to be able to readjust in society. Whether they're part of a family or not is not really important. The important thing is that they need to realize that they are human beings that we care for, they're valued, and they're members of our society. And it's projects like this I see time and time again which enrich people's lives. And in doing so, we are enriching our own communities, because if anybody is affected and if they've had the support, it means that society itself doesn't have to bear all the burden, and it means that people can recover sooner rather than later. And I think that's very important. And there is also a guilt factor sometimes where people are hesitant to actually come forward and admit to the fact that they've had difficulties. Jackson Carlos made a very good presentation today, and I'm sure that Annabel-Goldie will be proud of him to have delivered the speech that he has on her behalf. You've done a good job, sir. Thank you very much. But on a serious note, I really need to say that supporting our prisoners is like supporting our school kids. It's absolutely essential. It's very important that we support our people when they're at their most vulnerable. Thank you very much, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much. Now call on Anne McTaggart, after which we'll move to the closing speech.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm delighted to participate in the members' debate concerning Through Care support project in HM-Prison-Greenock. I'd like to thank Jackson Carlow for stepping up to the plate tonight and enabling it to go ahead, and wish Annabel-Goldie MSP a speedy recovery. As members will be aware, I have a professional interest and experience in youth and adult offender education. From my position within social work in Glasgow, I have witnessed the vital role education can play and does play in assisting offenders to rehabilitate themselves in their local community and providing them with a means to gain meaningful employment after release. In this debate, I would like to focus on 2 points. Firstly, the pilot through care support project in HM-Prison-Greenock itself, and secondly, some of the comments attributed to Lord Calloway. Presiding Officer, turning to the first, to the through care project in HM-Prison-Greenock, it is plain that the figures speak for themselves. The Scottish Prison Service has invested some £70,000 in taking forward this initiative. These are monies well spent when you would consider that reoffending costs the Scottish economy some £3 billion per year. In 2009-2010, over 47,000 Scots were convicted of a criminal offence. 30% of these individuals were re-convicted within a year. 1 in 5 offenders in Scotland have 10 or more previous convictions. These statistics illustrate the need for a kind of initiatives promoted within the HM-Prison-Greenock, with a strong emphasis on training and education. I understand that the benefits of the scheme are secured by the team of through care support workers, which Jackson Carlaw spoke about earlier, who assist the offenders leaving custody, assessing services such as housing, benefits and addiction support. This, together with the interagency work in the communities, can provide both pre-release and post-release support, not just to the prisoners, but also to their families and to the wider community. Presiding Officer, I would now like to turn my comments attributed to Lord Carloway. In recent days, Lord Carloway, the Justice Clerk, has suggested that Scotland's prisons population is too high and the wrong people are too often placed behind bars. He has also argued that prison sentencing should shift from a culture of retribution to one that takes greater account of the impact on inmates and wider society. Lord Carloway has stated that agencies should look at the models in Scandinavia, where prison populations have been significantly reduced. Sweden, a nation known for its emphasis on rehabilitation and liberal approaches to sentencing, last year announced plans to close 4 of its prisons due to a significant fall in the prison population. This is a country where reoffending is roughly half that of Scotland's. Perhaps this example provides us with one more reason why it is important that initiatives such as the Through Care project should be undertaken and properly evaluated in order to assess its impact on both offenders and rates of offending and reoffending. In conclusion, Presiding Officer, educational initiatives such as the Through Care project are of vital importance as we strive to battle the problem of reoffending. I look forward with interest in the publication of the evaluation following the first operational year of the project, which I believe is anticipated in the spring of this year. I am especially interested to understand more about how the project actually worked in practice and the opinions of the offenders as to its success. It is clear that in Scotland we need a culture shift in our sentencing of offenders, one where rehabilitation and restorative justice are prioritised over the futile and counterproductive short sentences we have become used to. I believe that projects such as this are the first steps in realising that prisons should be more than punishment and will serve as compelling evidence to inform our future approaches to criminal justice.
Many thanks. And we now move to the closing speech from Minister Rosanna Cunningham on behalf of the Government. Minister, up to 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This has been a short but no less important debate, and I'm grateful to Annabel-Goldie for highlighting the excellent work being done by the Through Care support officers at HM-Greenock, and of course to Jackson Carlaw for stepping in at the last minute to lead the members' debate this evening. Since he was also speaking in the previous debate, he certainly earned his money today, but nevertheless I hope he does transmit my best wishes for Annabel-Goldie's speedy recovery. As Mary Fee reminded us, we debated this last year when members welcomed the then £70,000 investment announced by the Scottish Prison Service to pilot this new approach. And 8 months on, I'm pleased to announce that the investment has increased to £90,000 and that this new approach is making a real difference to the reintegration needs of the 34 offenders who have successfully completed the programme so far. Of course, evaluating these new approaches and gaining an understanding of the lessons learned is essential. An interim evaluation of the Greenock pilot has been carried out by Edinburgh University. It was only received on 8th of January, and time will therefore be needed to consider and reflect on the evaluation report. However, the overall tenor is positive and will be used to inform the progress of the pilot and influence next steps. This person-centred approach to rehabilitation and reintegration reflects the Scottish Prison Service's new vision, helping to build a safer Scotland, unlocking potential, transforming lives, which was launched in November 2013 by Colin McConnell, Chief Executive of the Scottish Prison Service. And this new vision recognises that the existence of a supportive and trusting relationship between officer and individual can support an individual to stay away from crime and ensure continuity of support between custody and community. And both Jackson Carlaw and Annabel-Goldie recognise that. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to reducing reoffending. And this government is committed to testing approaches that meet the needs of short-term offenders through our Reducing Reoffending programme. This can be seen in our programme of work with partners to support offenders on liberation from prison. And in April of last year, we launched the £10 million Reducing Reoffending Change Fund. Like the Through Care support programme at Greenock, the Change Fund recognises that offenders leaving custody very often need support. So the fund has established 2 national and 4 specialist mentoring projects across Scotland. HM-Greenock is also taking part in the wider community reintegration project, which is a partnership between the Scottish Government, Scottish Prison Service and Scottish Court Service. And as well as HM-Greenock, the project works with certain short-term prisoners in Cornton Vale, Edinburgh and Perth prisons. It is examining an improved Through Care case management system and trialling enhanced support for the prisoners in both custody and the community. And both approaches are making a difference. Presiding Officer, we know, and I want to just remind everybody, of course, that I'm the Drugs Minister, so I just want to say just a little bit about that particular specific aspect of things. We know that over 2/3 of prisoners admit to drug use before arriving in prison. To address this, the Scottish Prison Service's drugs misuse strategy sets out a joint approach of improved security measures to stop illicit drugs getting into prisons in the first place, but sitting alongside a person-centred therapeutic approach to reducing harm and risk and providing fast and effective treatment and support. And local alcohol and drug partnerships, as strategic leads, are responsible for commissioning appropriate recovery-focused services to ensure continuity of care for individuals between prison and community. It's another component of that same desire to follow a prisoner outside the prison walls and into the community. A positive example of this is the National Naloxone programme. In recognition of the increased risk of illicit drug overdose in the first 3 months following liberation from custody, we're working with the SPS to deliver the provision of take-home naloxone at the point of release in all Scottish prisons. And the issue of improved linkages between prisons and community agencies will require, however, significant cultural change across public services and society as a whole, and it does have to happen now. Jackson Carlaw has recognised that, but he just rather went on to extol the virtues of what was happening south of the border. And I perhaps should gently point out to him that when stepping down, Liz Calderbank, HM's Inspector of Probation, said as recently as 9th January, the situation in England and Wales, that the same problems remain. The current offender management model is not working, and neither will the new rehabilitation programme. So it's not without its critics. But it is for the general reason, and to help embed this change across the wider public sector, that the Cabinet Secretary for Justice established a ministerial group on offender reintegration. Myself and 6 other ministers sit on this group. Stuart McMillan raising the issue of housing need with this client group, and Anne McTaggart discussing her experience with offender education, reminded us of just how wide-ranging the responses have to be. And the group's going to drive through changes which will enhance the way that our communities respond to the needs of offenders, to boost their chances to succeed in reintegrating and rehabilitating themselves, and acknowledging that it does require to be done across a number of different portfolios. I'm sure you will agree this vital work cannot be the sole responsibility of criminal justice services, and I think indeed that Jackson Carlow raised the issue of employers as well. The Government will continue to ask all in the public and voluntary sectors and in wider society to look carefully at what they could do to respond to the wide-ranging needs of offenders. And we need to make sure that the right support is available when an individual decides to go straight, to repay their debts to society and to make a new and better life for themselves. And Hanzala Malik used an important phrase when he said we have to treat prisoners like human beings. Important because some of the rhetoric suggests that is often forgotten. Presiding Officer, let me close by again commending the continued work of HM-Greenock in testing this new approach and thanking Annabel-Goldie for bringing it to the attention of Parliament again.
Thank you. Thank you all. I now close this meeting of Parliament.